Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the regular board work session meeting of the Georgetown County School District. It's 5:30 p.m., Tuesday, September 19th. Let us all stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, Christy Kibler will come forward with a Georgetown County School District Spotlight, Bring Harriet Home, Journey to Freedom overview, and musical selections by the Beach Singers.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Ford, Superintendent Price, members of the board, district administration, and guests. In July of 2022, the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce and Gullah Geechee Chamber Foundation announced that the Bring Harriet Home Journey to Freedom Monument would be coming to Georgetown County and would be on display in the city of Georgetown from August 1st to October 31st of this year. In anticipation of the unique opportunity to celebrate the history and culture of Georgetown County, while also commemorating the life of the American icon Harriet Tubman, a planning committee was formed and I was asked to be the representative for Georgetown County School District. The last 14 months have afforded numerous opportunities for Georgetown County School District to be involved in this unique celebration. Mr. Price spoke at the initial press conference held by the Planning Committee and shared his vision for how our students in Georgetown County would be a part of this celebration. I served on the Education Subcommittee, assisting with the creation and judging of 3 student contests: an art contest, an essay contest, and an oratorical contest, all focused on the life of Harriet Tubman with emphasis on Georgetown County. Our beach singers seated to my left, under the direction of Gina Nairn, along with the student winners from the aforementioned contest, all served a vital and critical role in the unveiling of the Harriet Tubman sculpture in Rainey Park on August 5th. And this past Friday, all 4th graders in Georgetown County School District had the opportunity to visit the sculpture in person and to attend Harriet Tubman, a one-woman show featuring Natalie Days at Georgetown High School. This event, free to all 4th graders in Georgetown County, was a success because of the combined efforts of the planning committee members and the district office staff who assisted both at Georgetown High and at Rainey Park. I appreciate the opportunity that I've had to serve as GCSD's representative on the planning committee. It has been exciting to witness firsthand history and learning come to life for the students in Georgetown County. If you have not yet visited the sculpture, I encourage you to do so within the next 5 weeks, as Harriet will leave Rainey Park on October 31st and travel to her next destination. As a final celebration, we have invited our beach singers, they're not just here for you to look at, to perform for you. They will be singing 2 selections for you, including one that they performed at the unveiling. At this time, if you will join us in the audience, they're going to assume their positions. We're going to get the mic set, and we're going to have a treat for you before we officially start tonight's meeting.
cries, can you see? My eyes, I am calling out to my cries, can you see? My to run. I do what I can, what I can, what I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, that's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home.
All across the river, can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on, oh I can feel it in my bones.
Early in the morning, before the sun begins to shine, gonna start moving towards that separating line. I'm wading through muddy waters. You know I got made up mind, and I don't mind if I lose any blood on the way to salvation.
Friends and family. Yes. Yep, don't forget that.
Oh, it's not. Very good. That was excellent.
That was a beautiful way to start this board meeting. Now we'll move on to public comments or requests. And this section of each regularly scheduled board meeting is reserved for comments from the audience on any item appearing on the agenda for citizens to make specific requests of the school board or to raise specific issues for future discussion by the board. Comments or requests should be brief and to the point as possible, shall not exceed 3 minutes, and must not mention specific names of students or personnel. Persons who wish to address their board are requested to complete one of the cards available at the entrance and submit it before the meeting begins. Public comments will be aired live, but the board typically will not respond to individual comments. And the first speaker that we have is Ronald McInnes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to stand before this board this evening to the established protocol to everyone who is assembled in this place. I stand before you tonight as a citizen of Georgetown with a concern, and that concern is how we are dealing with the expulsion of our students. And I've been given several phone calls, and I've been given a lot of information about the disparities that exist within the racial disparities that exist within our school system when it comes to people of color and expulsions and suspensions. But I didn't come to talk about that tonight. I came with a plea. I'm not a lawyer to adjudicate, so I won't try to do that, but I am a pastor. And so I would like to refer to a parable. And that parable is found in the book of Luke. And it's talking about a fig tree and a certain man that came and visited the garden. And that certain man had the power of life and death in his hand as it pertained to the fig tree. And so that fig tree hadn't produced any fruit for 3 years. He said, cut it down, get rid of it, kill it. Hadn't produced anything for 3 years. And so I liken that to the people that suggest that you send our young men or our students, it doesn't matter if it's male or female, out into the streets with no education, no means of getting an education in Georgetown County. Kill it. Cut it down. It bears no fruit. But I'm so glad that that certain man wasn't the only one in the garden that night or that day. There was another individual there, and it was mercy and it was grace. And mercy and grace pleaded that give him one more chance. One more chance to get it right. Let me fertilize, let me nurture, let me pour in to this fig tree. You see, that gardener had knowledge of the fig tree. It had a relationship with the fig tree. The certain man didn't. He was just there passing by. He owned the land, but he didn't stay there with it. The gardener did. And so, as my time is expiring, I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you, give it one more chance. Please don't put our children out here in the streets. Give them one more chance. Mercy and grace.
Thank you. Our next card we have is from Miss Elizabeth Brackner.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ford, Superintendent Price, and our school board, but most importantly, our community. I speak tonight, of course, with the increasing concern of violence in our school. This is a societal issue. I'm not here to blame or protect. I am expressing concern. I'm impressed by the comprehensive school board safety updates presented by Mr. Walters in the last 2 meetings. I was appreciative of Mr. Cox's motion to implement a committee to continue to ensure that Georgetown County has the safest possible. My question tonight is, where is the community response to this? Why are we not banding together to work with the school district, law enforcement, community leaders to help address this problem? Why are we not outraged that it isn't necessary to have to implement active shooting drills more routinely for school children? And if you've never had to do that, I understand. Then maybe it isn't. Your perspective is serious. I can assure you, it's hard to explain and be reassuring to a child. It's hard to wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and pray, not today, not my school, not my class, not my students today. That's what educators face. And parents in the community should recognize that instead of wanting to blame. Apparently, one of the issues is the increasing influence of the ultra-conservative group Moms for Liberty. They are distracting from real issues. Their priorities? Let's ban books. Let's censor the curriculum, particularly sanitizing the instruction of history, because we can't make someone uncomfortable. Let's attack multimedia specialists. And to me, the most appalling, let's keep this verbal assault on educators. Let's continue to make a divisive environment between the community, parents, and educators as they impede this. We influence people. My challenge, look in the eyes, or pretend that you're looking in the eyes of a loved one or survivor of Columbine, of Parkland, of Uvalde, of Robert Military, and tell them that you feel those teachers and staff and coaches who sacrificed their lives, who wrapped their arms around their students to try to shield them from being shot, are less than the heroes that they are. And I also challenge you to look at our everyday heroes, the teachers that every day work so hard and so dedicated, and tell me that they are less than your perception. Let's be supportive. Let's come together. Let's not be distracted by hate. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next comment comes from Ms. Felicia Cooper.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm here to talk about Wi-Fi, specifically at Carvers Bay High and Middle. I'm going to start off by saying this. It's ironic that in 2020, Carvers Bay and this school district got together to provide buses for our children in those areas to be able to learn online during the pandemic. And 3 years later, that same Wi-Fi that's now available in the schools for our children to learn is being cut off. They're no longer allowed to be able to access internet capabilities because of various different reasons, one of which is too many kids on phones during learning time. Instead of writing our children up for being on their phones, why don't you live up to what you sold us for those schools to be? Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math schools. That cell phone is a part of life. You all have them, you all use them, and once again, as I stated earlier, we use them to videotape all of these meetings. So why aren't our teachers being made to utilize them in the classroom instead of writing them up? There are surveys our kids can take using their cell phones by scanning a barcode and having that survey on their phone that they can answer questions, interactive lesson planning and learning that they can do on those cell phones, reading and response, where they can read a passage and respond via their cell phone, how they felt about that passage, what they got from the passage, and what they interpreted. There's also ways that you can do open book tests using the cell phone. That way, if you're worried about cheating, it's open book. They're using their cell phone to interact in the classroom. That would be an engaging environment. And I don't know, maybe I taught a long time ago, but I was told bell-to-bell instruction and on-the-go classroom management is what's necessary for our children. And right now, classroom management consists of monitoring who has a phone and who doesn't. I think our teachers' time would be better spent monitoring who's using that cell phone for the purpose of education versus who's using it at all. We need to be better, and you guys need to live up to what you promised us. If you're not going to be a science, technology, engineering, arts, and math school, send back the funding and we can go back to business as usual. But in our area, it's a dead zone without internet access. And if something happens to our children, like the bomb threat in Andrews or the bomb threat at Waccamaw, we want our children to be able to call us and say, Mom, I'm okay. I'm fine. The same way you would want your children to reach out to you. The same way you'd want to be able to reach your spouse if they were at their job.
Thank you. We will now move to the approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The motion carries. We've got approval of our minutes. Now we'll adopt our agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? And the adoption of the agenda has passed. Now we'll move on to some action items. Personnel list by Dr. Myrtle Milton and Mr. Doug Jenkins. The administration recommends approval of the personnel list as presented.
So moved.
Any second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Personnel list is approved. We'll move on to the policy BBC, board member resignations. Ms. Lindsay Ann Thompson. The administration recommends second and final reading approval of policy BBC, board member resignation as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The policy has passed. Now, policy BBD, board member removal from office. Ms. Lindsay Ann Thompson. The administration recommends second and final reading approval of policy BBD, board member removal from office as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Policy BBE, unexpired term fulfillment. The administration recommends second and final reading approval of no changes to policy BBE, unexpired term fulfillment as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The motion carries. Policy BBF, board member conduct. The administration recommends second and final reading approval of policy BBF, board member conduct as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor state aye.
I have a question. I'm sorry. I have a question on the wording, the board member conduct wording, seventh bullet down. Says what, my question is, what constitutes an irregular or secret meeting, not official, in which all members of the public are not invited to attend? What does that mean? I'll give you some examples. is a luncheon between 2 or 3 board members to discuss an issue an illegal meeting?
No, sir. No, sir. My understanding is that if it's a meeting where you have a quorum, where you have a majority of board members that come together,
Okay.
then that's considered an official meeting. It must be advertised and publicized accordingly.
I would recommend that be spelled out because it's pretty widely open to misinterpretation.
Any other discussion on this?
Keith, just so we'll be crystal clear, that quorum number, the way it would have, is 5.
That's correct.
Okay, just
That's
wanted
correct.
to be crystal clear on that.
Yes, sir.
Do we want to table that and come back once it's put in?
I would move to do that.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next one, Policy BBFA, Board Member Conflict of Interest. The administration recommends second and final reading approval of no changes to Policy BBFA, Board Member Conflict of Interest as presented. Any questions, or do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Renewal of lease agreement with Waccamaw Council of Governments. The administration recommends approval of the renewal of lease agreement with Waccamaw Council of Governments as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We now have some information items. We've got a several board policy manual review. We have Board Member Code of Ethics, Policy BBFB.
Madam Vice Chair, if I may, our presenter is almost here. If it's okay with the board, could we move on to item number 2 and circle back to number 1?
Absolutely. This is school calendar feedback with Mr. Doug Jenkins.
Good evening, Vice Chair Ford, members of the board, Superintendent Price, district staff, members, and guests. I come before you this evening to give to you the feedback that we've received thus far for the calendar. We've received several hundred email responses and can break them down pretty much into 4 categories. One is dealing with the staff development days being on Wednesdays for those half instructional days. Of course, the majority would like them to be moved to Friday. The second deals with why are we having a calendar for 2 years that we don't even know if the first year is going to work. The third is why could we not move back to a traditional calendar. And the fourth is the one that we expected the most discussion on, and that would be the week of Thanksgiving. So with that being stated, we are going to continue collecting feedback. Mr. Batten will send out an email tomorrow asking for all feedback to be received by Friday, so that way we can meet with the calendar committee and bring back, hopefully, at the October board meeting, a presented calendar for you. But if you see in front of you or behind you or beside you right now is the proposed 24-25 school year calendar. I would like for the members and also the community to understand when you're looking at a calendar, you're also having to look at when you would like each semester to end. That's one of the reasons that we revised the presentation this year with the first semester being on the left and the second semester being on the right, because you really can't take days out of the second semester and add them onto the first semester. Like there were some suggestions about let's come to school on Good Friday, which would have been in April. That is not going to help a start date. But we could accommodate a 5-day Thanksgiving break in 2 ways. Well, actually 3. We could either come to school in July, which I don't think anybody is truly in favor of. We could decrease the break of a week that we have in October down to 3 days instead of 2 days, or we could make Veterans Day, which is the 11th of November, a half day, which would count as a day for students. And we could move the start day, the last day in December, which is the 20th, which would have been a staff development day. We can push that to a day in the second semester, and then that would mean that the last day for students would be on the 20th. Those 2 days would allow us to have a full week at Thanksgiving. But keep in mind, those are just proposals. We would still need to take those to the calendar committee, and also with any further input that you would like to give concerning just that year, and I'll talk about the next year in just a second. But any feedback or concerns, questions that you would have?
I have a question. When you send out the new survey or the new request, are you going to add those things to there or no?
If that is your pleasure, yes, ma'am.
I think that would help people to see, okay, well, no matter what, I want a full week in November, except maybe starting in July is not an option. So that I think it helps people if you break it down.
Okay. Then moving to the 25-26 school year calendar. This one is a little bit more tricky. Okay, because as you can see, there's very little wiggle room within this calendar. The only thing that we could truly, again, we could either start early, we could take time away from that enrichment week in October, or we could adjust the start dates. Right now, we've got students coming, their first day is Tuesday, the 5th of August. The only way we would be able to accommodate a full week, unless you want to start extra early, would be for students, their first day would be that Friday, August the 1st. Which is kind of tough to come to school for one day in a week. But that is pretty much the limitation if you want that full week at Thanksgiving for the 25-26 school year.
And when you send that feedback out again, that's going to include both years?
We can have, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I guess I have a question about the percentage of people that, in those areas that wanted those changes. I would say the November was probably a pretty high percentage of people.
Yes, ma'am.
The others not so much.
Actually, there were more for Thanksgiving, but there were several that dealt with the why are we doing this when we haven't figured out yet whether or not the first year is going to work.
That has to do with planning, though, doesn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And I think when you have advanced planning and you're looking a couple of years ahead as opposed to just doing it 1 year at a time.
Yes, ma'am. There were several businesses and community members that last year when we did this were pushing back as far as an early start date. And I think we did explain to them that this is probably going to be 3 years before we can see a true result of this. But a lot of those same individuals were making it known again that they're just not in favor of an early start calendar.
Right. And looking at Thanksgiving, it's kind of hard to do Thanksgiving the whole week 1 year and take it away the next. So
yes, ma'am.
You kind of anticipated that.
Yes, ma'am.
Pushback. Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much, Mr. Jenkins.
You're most welcome.
Moving on, are we ready to?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I saw Ms. Lindsay Ann come in. Ms. Lindsay Ann Thompson?
Good evening, Vice Chair Ford, members of the board, Mr. Price. First, I certainly apologize for the bit of a personal issue and my tardiness. And I understand there was a question before I arrived about one of the policies from the first group, and that was policy BBF, board member conduct. Thank you.
Yes. 7th bullet.
Yep.
BBF, the 7th bullet.
7th bullet. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I'm sorry, I missed the question. Just
What Mr. DeBose asked, what constitutes a secret meeting which is not official? And my attempt to answer in your absence was that if there is a quorum, meaning 5 or more board members who meet to discuss district business, then that is considered an official meeting and must be advertised in such fashion.
I would completely agree.
And the request was to spell that out specifically so that it's not left for interpretation.
Okay. So the term secret then, did you have a more particular definition that you would like to see, or?
Just to mention what constitutes an official meeting, the example I put out there was 2 or 3 board members get together for lunch or whatever to discuss a specific issue. Does that constitute an illegal meeting, or is that a problem? My understanding is it's not a problem. It's when you have a quorum meeting without notifying the public.
That is the big, I mean, the magic number is, of course, the quorum, the 5 for us as a 9-member board. But again, we want to avoid, as we always say, avoid the appearance of impropriety as well. And so if you're routinely having 2, 3, 4 people getting together just to avoid the development of a quorum and to discuss district business, that would be improper as well. We don't want to just limit just under a quorum and do district business at the same time. But certainly we can clarify the term secret, and that it's not a meeting that's been announced, and not a meeting that's been planned and shared with the public in terms of what we'd have to do to comply with FOIA.
Well, I guess my concern is that, say I want to meet with somebody to get a better understanding of their understanding of something that we're discussing, because I don't understand it. But I don't want to take up the board's time to do that.
Right.
But am I then making myself vulnerable to somebody else saying, hey, here, that's misconduct, when all I'm trying to do, or I meet with a group separately, or 2 board members do, to just hear what they got to say in order to just hear it.
I think as long as you're not making any decisions, as long as what you've discussed could be later shared with the public without any problem. I don't think that's an issue. I just don't think it doesn't need to be a routine going all the time. But I think certainly the occasional question that comes up and this particular issue that you'd like to discuss with 1 or 2 other folks is permissible.
Yeah, I would just like more clarity spelled out in that policy, because I think it can be widely misinterpreted. That's my only concern.
Okay. So then, would you all like to vote to table this particular version for the next? And did we already vote on that?
They did.
My apologies. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving forward then with the new policies for information. The first policy that we had was policy BBF, Board Member Code of Ethics. And really, when you compare our current policy with the model policy, you can see it is one tiny change, one tiny addition, and that's at number 8. And all they've done there is add the phrase, ensuring effective communication between and among the board and staff, parents/guardians, students, and the community. And everything else would remain the same. Very slight change, so we were almost exactly in line with the model policy, just they added one little phrase.
And the only suggestion I would make in that is clarifying again number, where is it? The same kind of wording, a board member. I just saw it, but it's on that same issue of what constitutes a secret meeting. I think it would be key for me to know that the meeting is meant to clarify, whoever's meeting, to clarify or understand at a deeper level things they don't currently understand. It's not to formulate an approach for the board, because I don't think this people on this board want to get together in secret, and, I just don't see that. But we won't always be the same board, and I just worry that way it's phrased now could be misinterpreted and used against somebody because it qualifies as a secret meeting.
Okay, so we can develop some wording that we would use for that policy BBF, and we can mirror that same language in number 6 on page 2, the very top of page 2, refusing to participate in irregular meetings, and use the same language for both. I've just got to come up with a more specific definition, something that would be, the words that would, something along the lines of in compliance with FOIA or other applicable law or something along those lines.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I think this also goes in line, the issue you're stating. I remember there have been some trainings about it, the Code of Board Member Conduct or Code of Ethics trainings address these issues. So it comes out in workshops where they talk about the same issues. And I think part of it is, you know how when you get together with colleagues and you might say, let's meet every third Wednesday, for lunch to discuss X, Y, Z. We don't want to meet on a regular basis, but you're saying let's just get together to talk about a particular issue. I think the idea is really to discourage board members from coming together off-site to talk about board business.
I think that's a much more artful way of saying what I was attempting to say. Thank you. I think you're exactly right on that.
But by the same token, I know what it's meant to discourage nefarious activity, but I think it's extremely limiting to the board members that, you've got to either call somebody to come meet in order to have a simple conversation with somebody. I'll give you a perfect example. I would love to understand better when we get to talking about education results and so forth. I can ask questions here, but there are a couple people on this board that have a really deep insight into what these tests say and don't say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I need to take up the entire board to understand that and have a public meeting. I can just ask one person on the board to help explain that to me, or one or two people.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I just think if we, I know what it's designed to prevent. I just think it's too doggone broad the way it's worded.
Okay. That helps me to kind of think of some more appropriate wording, so I appreciate the discussion.
And I'd like to just pay attention to number 4 at the bottom of page 1.
Yes, sir.
Making decisions only after all facts bearing on a question have been presented and discussed. So I would certainly suggest that we be mindful, if these meetings are to take place, be mindful of that in discussing things, and you don't have all the facts, and you don't have everybody collectively opinion to weigh. So meeting, I don't particularly care to do so.
Right, and of course, as you're saying, the board, no member of the board can act alone. You only act as a unit. So having all of the information, all of you having all of the information, the same information together, is important.
Yes.
I do think we have to be really mindful, though, of the fact I think we still could have these committee meetings that we just formed like recently, and have that I think still has to be considered, but there's not a quorum of the board and no decisions are made about anything. Mm-hmm. It's just the fact that it's fact-finding for a group of people to share with the whole. I think we still have to leave room for those kinds of things to exist.
Exactly.
Without making it appear like it's something different than it is.
And those committees would, of course, bring information back to the whole, and that would be shared with all 9 board members. So that's kind of a distinction there. But yes, those are important as well. Anything further on BBFB?
We're good.
We're good.
Okay. All right, moving forward to policy BCD. This one, to bring us in line with the model, has some significant changes, and as you can see, the second page is a kind of a comparison of the board's involvement versus the superintendent's involvement. So the first page up there is, of course, new language that would replace the narrative portion of the policy, but the real meat of it is in that chart. And that's, I think it's lined up well in terms of comparing similar concepts, and then the breakdown of the tasks between the board and the superintendent. Any questions or thoughts on either the narrative portion or the chart?
I have a question. Establish salary schedules and other personnel policies. What do you mean by that?
Well, as part of the function of the board is obviously the budget overall, which includes those individual salary schedules. And those, you're typically taking on the recommendation of administration, the salary schedules. But that is a specific, when you're talking about the budget, that is a specific function reserved to the board itself. But then again, the flip side of that is that it's the superintendent's role, along with administration, to recommend what those policies would be, to recommend what those salaries would be. But when you're talking about the budget, that is your specific area in particular, if that helps.
You may recall, Ms. Ford, that during the budget presentations, there was portions about how much we were proposing to increase teacher salaries, bus driver salaries, custodians, and so on.
Right.
None of that is official until the board votes on it.
Right.
So that's...
Gotcha.
Am I missing a question there, Ms. Ford? Did I answer your question?
Yes, when it said establish salary schedules, it just seemed a little more like, it seemed as if we had to do a little more than that we had to be a little more proactive in coming together and come up with something as opposed to what we've done in the past. So I just wanted clarification on that.
I think that wording is suggested there simply because it is that budgetary piece that falls very specifically to the board, I think, is kind of the rationale behind that. Any further questions on BCD? Okay. And I may be going out of order here. Do you all have BCE as your next? Okay, thank you. This one we revised in January of 2022, and this is a district-by-district decision. So, if you want special committees, if you want standing committees, that's a specific choice that each board would make. But since we had revised it so recently, I left it as is. But all of you are, of course, able to make any suggestions or changes at this point that you think are appropriate.
Yep.
Looks good.
We're good.
I think it's fine.
Okay. All right. Oops. Moving on would be policy BCF, school improvement councils and advisory committees. As you can see, the last time this one was revised, it was, 22 years ago. So the law has changed significantly since then, and the new language, which is all, of course, underlined, is all in line with what the law states now, as opposed to what it stated 22 years ago. So this was just simply an update to keep up with the statutory language. Any questions on the policy itself? Okay. The administrative rule that goes along with that, policy BCF-R, advisory, school improvement councils and advisory committees. Again, there have just been various changes to the law, and this simply mirrors what those changes have been. And I will say Dr. Barano is instrumental in creating these revisions and making sure that we're lining up with what the current regulatory and statutory requirements are. So a big thank you to her for making sure that we were on track on this one.
Okay. Okay, we
Any
can move
further
on.
questions? Okay, so we'll move forward to BDA, regular board meetings. And I realize that this one has not been revised since 2011, but I didn't have any changes to make to it either. Certainly, if there's something that you all would like to see differently, a different language or wording, we can do that. But really, we were still kind of tracking along with what this policy says.
And we did, at our board retreat last year, we did revisit this as a board. We didn't do it formally as a policy, but we did revisit it and decided that the wording fit exactly the format we were in right now.
Right.
So it probably doesn't look like it's been revised, and hasn't, but it was revisited, and I guess we just didn't bring it back for a formal revision.
Well, and I think, and I appreciate you pointing that out, Ms. Hamill, I think what you all did was align your conduct back to the policy, so that we were having a work session and a regular meeting every month. So we had kind of strayed from the policy language, and we've come back to it. So now we're very much in line with what the policy itself says, unless you have some changes that you'd like to see. Any other questions on that one?
No.
Okay. We're to the last one. The last one is one that I believe a few of you have at least asked about or requested. So this is not a policy BEDL, board members and electronic communications, not a policy that we currently have. This is one that is in the model policy book, and a lot of districts around the state have adopted in one format or another, but we do not have any version of this yet. So just kind of, since it's brand new, walking through it, talks about, official electronic communications about official board business are subject to FOIA. They would have to be publicly disclosed regardless of whether the board member is using a personal email address, a personal cell phone number, or other electronic device to send that communication. It has a definition there of what electronic communication would mean. And it talks about, under no circumstances will board members use electronic communications to discuss among themselves board business that's supposed to be discussed in public session. Board members will be provided with a district email account and are strongly encouraged to use that account, which is certainly true for all of you. You're encouraged to use that, not required, but whatever email account you do choose to use would be FOIA-able in the event that somebody needed to seek information from your email about board business. So even if you're using a Gmail or a Yahoo or whatever kind of account, if you're talking about board business and there were a FOIA request for information regarding that issue, we would have to go through your personal email account and pull any emails that were relevant to that. So this just very specifically spells out that you aren't able to circumvent the requirements of FOIA simply by using a private personal email account. That doesn't get around the requirements of the law. So that's the first section. Then the second section would just be electronic communications during board members. Same as what you all do. You're encouraged to use your computers or portable devices to look at board materials and policies, but will refrain from electronic communication during board meetings. Basically, you'll be doing the work of the board rather than texting back and forth or having side conversations or something like that, or a conversation with a member of the public during the board meeting. So not to receive text among one another or others during the meeting. And then it just talks about why that's important. It's just, receiving those electronic communications from the public during the meetings present a special concern, would promote the appearance of partiality, which is, of course, something we want to avoid, and just the basic concept of the board members are supposed to be meeting in public with everybody sharing the same information. So just because that's a new one, I kind of wanted to walk through that. But any questions or comments about either section of that, kind of the device usage versus usage during a meeting?
I think it's a good reminder, especially with the use of personal versus district devices, as well as using electronic communication during board meetings. I think that's important as well. Okay. And
And that is the last policy I had for y'all this evening. Kind of a lot to get through there. Any questions about them as a group?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
We're now going to move on to Human Resources Staffing Report by Dr. Myrtle Milton and Mr. Doug Jenkins.
Good evening, Vice Chair Ford, board members, Mr. Price, cabinet members, and guests. This evening, I'll be sharing an HR update for our support staff employees, followed by Mr. Jenkins with the certified staff. For 22-23, you'll see we had 102 new hires, and of those hires, we have them by gender and race. Male, 12, African American, 58 female. And then for Caucasian, we had 6 male employees who were hired, and then 25 female. And Asian, we had 1 female, and those were all hires for the 2022-23 school year. Also for 22-23, we had 51 transfers. Of that, there were 5 male, African American male who were transferred, 22 African American females, 1 Caucasian male, and 23 female, Caucasian female who were transferred. And then what I wanted to do is just give you more of an idea of what that looked like for the transfers in 22-23. For our African American males, there were 5, as I stated, who were transferred. Of the 5, 3 were a location change, and 2, they were promotions. And then for the African American females, there were 22 total transferred. 8 was a location change, and then there were 14 African American females who were promoted. For our Caucasian, 1 male transfer, and that was a promotion. Our females for Caucasian were 23, 10 location changes, and there were 13 of those who were promoted. And then so far for 23-24, our new hires, just wanted to share where we are as of this point. We have 60 new hires as of last week. Of that, 10 African American male, 31 African American female, 5 Caucasian male, 11 female Caucasian, and then the other 3 female, and that could be a mixture of race there. For 23-24, you see we have had 23 so far transfers, 4 African American male, 13 African American female, 1 Caucasian male, and 5 Caucasian female. The next slide again will show the breakdown on how that looks. For the breakdown of the African American male, as I stated, it was 4 transfers. Of that was 1 location change, and then there were 3 promotions. For the African American female, total of 13 transfers, 6 they were location changes, and 7 of those were promotions. For our Caucasian, 1 male transfer, and that was a promotion, and female, there were 5 transfers, 2 location changes, and 3 were promoted. Want to show that our retention rate for 22-23 for our support staff was 81%. Our goal is to continuously make that retention rate higher each year, and that was indicative on our plan that we have presented already. Just wanted to highlight some of retention strategies for our benefits. We are proud to say we have a great package for our employees, as all employees, certified and non-certified. We've partnered with an agency that actually sits down and meet with our employees so they understand the benefits, so they can make informed judgment and they understand exactly what's being offered. Our training, we have been very intentional and purposeful with training for our non-certified staff to include, that's all employees, to include our bus drivers, our custodians, our food service operators, our secretaries, just making sure that all employees are being trained so they can continue to do well in their jobs. Our policies and procedures, that's something that's also big that we're doing, making sure employees understand what our policies look like, making sure they have reference to the policies. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting with a group tomorrow at Georgetown Middle School. All of our food service operators and their managers will be together in one room where I'll be going over the policies and procedures and allowing them to ask questions and give them answers. And then our compensation, I think, is another great strategy for retention. Each year, we're looking purposely at what our salaries look like, comparing them to other districts like ours, and trying to make sure we're very competitive and keeping our employees with competitive salary packages. As I stated at last board meeting, I'm very proud of our growing our own with our employees. I think that also helps with retention, where we've partnered with Horry Georgetown Tech in Coastal Carolina, as well as Voorhees. And my presentation 2 weeks ago, I talked about the Voorhees program. We also have the Horry Georgetown and Coastal Carolina program. And the thing that I like most about this is these employees are able to be able to work into the classroom, have their internship, and maintain their jobs, maintain their salaries, and maintain their benefits. So both programs have allowed us to be able to show our employees that we want them to grow and be able to not only grow, but be able to keep their jobs and keep their salaries and their benefits. So I think that helps also with our retention as well. And finally, my last slide is to talk to you about our additional educational assistance, for short AEA. Most of you may know some of our students, they have to have an IEP, and that IEP dictates that they have to have someone with them at all times to make sure that they're getting what they need. And so we are purposeful, and Dr. Green and I, of making sure that those persons who we are assigning to those students, not only are they assigned, but they're also being trained. So this summer before school started, we had a workshop where all 61 came in, and Dr. Green and her team, as well as my team, we met with them, gave them a manual so they can understand how to, strategies on how to deal with those students and make sure that they're giving them what they need as far as helping them to grow in their lessons. So we've trained 61 of those persons, and as we continue to hire them and have requests, our goal was to continue to make sure they're trained as they work with our students. That's all I have. I think we're going to entertain questions at the end, but if you want to ask me now before I take my seat, I'd be more than happy to welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Melton.
Good evening again. I'm following Dr. Milton to talk about what we're doing with our certified staff. So for the previous year, for 22-23, these are the individuals that we hired: 4 school administrators and 125 teachers, and I have them broken down by race and by level. So for our school administrators, that is a 50% minority rate, and for our teachers, that is a 26% minority rate. But you can see again that our highest level is always secondary. Secondary seems to be the highest turnover rate, and it's consistently been that way for many, many, many years. Then for our certified transfers, we had 4 school administrators and 23 teachers, and of course those were just transfers due to locations. Then for this year so far, we've hired 3 school administrators and 96 teachers. For our administrators, that's a 66% minority hiring rate, and for our teachers, it's a 29% minority hiring rate. For our retention rates for 22-23, one of the things that I wanted to point out is what we report to the state is the 86%, because that would be the number of contracts that were returned. But we have in our policy that teachers can get out of their contract for any reason up until June 1st. So if you put that June 1st deadline in there, it drops from 86 down to 78%. So you're going to see me come a little bit later this year to see if we can get that verbiage removed from that, because we're the only school district that I'm aware of that has that June 1st verbiage in there. With other school districts, once that contract has been signed, it becomes a legally binding agreement. Other things that I want to talk about are the recruitment fairs that we attend in person. So that is a listing of all the recruitment fairs that are offered that we attend. And that's on a yearly basis. Consistently, we've always gone to the same ones. And the second thing that you're going to see are institutes of higher education where we have intern placement agreements. These are colleges and universities that our undergraduates are attending, and then they're looking for us to place them in a student teaching experience. So this would be that senior level practicum of which, once they complete, we can hire those individuals. So as you can see with the amount of individuals or institutes that we have, that is one of the reasons that we are able to place so many of our interns and recruit them to becoming permanent full-time teachers. Internship placement is almost a full-time job with everything that you have to monitor, all the requirements, all the visitations, all the documentation that's put into place. That's why you'll see that a lot of surrounding school districts don't entertain as many as we have, but under your guidance and also with the tutelage of our administration and the HR staff, we really are gung-ho with this, and that again, that is one of the reasons you'll see that we start the school year basically fully staffed or pretty darn close. We don't have triple-digit openings. The next thing that I wanted to show you were the applications that we received so far for our teaching positions this year. Overall, we had 1,003 applicants for the positions that we had. Now keep in mind, we post our positions nationwide, so this goes out to a variety of hiring institutions. With that, as you can see, if you look at the center, when it talks about race, 38% of our applicants are minority. One of the things that I want to bring to your attention is the blue, which is the fourth one down. No response, 76. We cannot lawfully require an individual to disclose their race at the time of the application. So that's one of the reasons that you're going to see that number grow larger and larger as time goes on. And then when you look at gender, if you look at the third bullet, you'll see 20, because there again, we cannot legally require somebody to disclose their gender when they are filling out an application. The next is looking at minority teachers as a snapshot. If you will see statewide, there are 52,380 teachers, of which 10,567.4 are minority for a statewide average of 20.17%. If you look at Georgetown, and you can find that on the SARA website, which is sara.org, and that information will be available for you under the supply and demand report. If you look at Georgetown, there are 603 total classroom teachers, of which 129.6 are in a minority position, which gives us a rate of 21.13%. Mr. Price, are you wanting me to address the questions that are being asked? Okay. Then if you will look at Horry County, they have 3,056 teachers, of which 2,258 are minority, which is an 8.4% minority rate. Charleston is 3,580, of which 66.5 or 622.5 are minority, which is a 17.35% rate. The reasons that you're seeing the points afterwards are those are the positions. We may not have a full person in that position. It may only be a 0.6 position versus a 1.0 position. So as you can see, we exceed the state average for the number of minority teachers that we have, and we far exceed our surrounding counties to the north and the south of us. So what are we doing to further assist with this? Again, we attend the recruitment fairs that are offered at the historically black colleges and universities. We network with local organizations to boost minority recruitment. Recently, we were talking with the Charleston group and what they do to attract minority teachers. We look at the hiring and interviewing process. We have several Grow Your Own programs. We have tried to partner with the Call Me Mr. program. I think I gave that presentation at the last board update that we had. We have paid internships, of which we've entered into 2 this year. Project Bold is something that I talked about at our last meeting as well, where that's looking at financial incentives for student loans that we can assist and pay back. We also conduct and analyze our exit interviews to find out why individuals are leaving us. And then we do advertise in a variety of minority recruitment websites. Some of our recruitment retention efforts for all are the Rural Recruitment Incentive. Of course, that is a retention for if you're at what we would call a rural school, which would be any of the Carvers Bay schools, any of the Andrews area schools. At the end of your third year, we will pay you a $1,500 stipend. We do tuition reimbursement, which is up to $500 per class for a total of $1,000 that you can have up to a year. We offer tuition discounts with a variety of institutes of higher education. We have our paid internships, and one of the few school districts that will actually offer a praxis assistance for those individuals that are having difficulty with Praxis 1 and the Praxis 2 examinations. And then moving on to ADEPT. For ADEPT, for last year, there were a total of 209 teams, which is the breakdown as you can see. Induction would be first-year teachers. Annual would be second-year teachers. Annual veterans would be individuals that are transferring in from another state that have at least 3 years of experience. And recertification is a teacher has to go through a formal evaluation process once every 5 years to become formally evaluated. So far this year, as you can see, the number has increased. We have 218, and the breakdown is as follows. With all of those teachers, one of the things that you have to have are certified mentors. Those would be the individuals that would be assisting first-year teachers and those that require additional assistance. And we have 221, which is roughly about a third of our teaching staff are mentor trained, and it's the breakdown by school there as well. And letting you know that so far this year, we've trained an additional, that 56 is in that number right there. And that concludes the presentation. Any questions?
Yes, I have one. I'm on voice rest, so I'm going to try to get this out. On both sides, classified and certified, how many positions are we lacking to be filled? On both sides.
Okay. Right now, I wish I would have been prepared to answer that question, but I can say that the majority of our positions are full. If I have to break it down, and this is again to the best of my abilities, we have a guidance position that is available at Browns Ferry Elementary School. We have a STEM position at Waccamaw Middle School. We have an ROTC position at Andrews High School. We have just recently, that came on the board packet tonight, an ELA position at Georgetown Middle School. So I would say probably, if I had to give a rough estimate, anywhere from 10 to 12 positions that we currently have open for teaching staff.
Teaching side?
Yes, sir.
We have about 5 positions available right now, Mr. Walker. One is a director of transportation. We have a secretary at Kensington, 2 custodial position, and a secretary position at maintenance.
I left my button home, Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, sir.
My button should have told you that I'm on voice rest.
Okay.
I left it on.
All right, thank you.
All right, guys, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Now we are set for Ms. Lisa Johnson with our ESSER budget update.
Vice Chair Ford, board members, Mr. Price, we last came to you in March of 2022. We gave you an ESSER budget update. We are coming to the end of our ESSER funding. And so I wanted to go through tonight and tell you how many positions we still have in ESSER and kind of what we'll need to look forward to doing next year, as well as where we are with all of the funding. This is, now we had $2.6 million that we got in 1920 when COVID first started. We finished that up at the end of 21-22, so we did not include that, but that is part of our ESSER funding that we have been handling since 1920. For ESSER 2, we finished that up June 30th, so we have completely spent that $11.7 million.
The ESSER 3 monies, which is the $26.4 million. You can see in 21-22, we spent $3.2 million, 22-23, $6.5. We've already encumbered or obligated and planned for after-school programs and personnel to use 11.7. So we'll be working on spending the other $5 million. We are going to be doing the Chromebook refresh. Those were the ones we ordered when COVID came, so it'll be time to update those. That's about $1.2 million that'll come out of that. We also have some other requests that we're looking into to be able to see if they fit into the program. Another option might be to use indirect cost. It's a program that allows it. You could, for 1 year, we could figure the percentage of indirect cost, put that back to the general fund, and then that would help pay for the things that we're going to be moving back to general fund for that year. That would be a one-time payment. So that's where we stand budgetarily with those two pots. Are you doing? Okay. So these are the positions that we still have currently funded through our ESSER monies. There's a classroom teacher at Carver Coastal Montessori Charter School. We've got 4 college and career readiness coaches, coordinator of student services at one of our middle schools. We have 2 custodians, but one is actually a part-time custodian. We have a district truancy officer, an instructional assistant that works with special ed. We have 19.7 interventionists. One of those is at the Montessori school. We have an itinerant nurse, a psychologist, 6.5 RBHS counselors, and 5 reading curriculum and elementary coaches. That includes the full-time one at Waccamaw Middle that doesn't fit in with the Title I programs, and a speech path. So 44.2 current positions. Any questions about any of those? If you'll move on through the positions that it'll show you the trend over the 3 years. We actually started out with 31.7 over-allocated teachers that we were going to have to move back to the general fund. We've dealt with all of those, and we did not include Montessori in this because that would be an issue that their board will have to deal with next year, is the 18.7, the interventionist. And as you know, the elementary principals requested that at the last budget, so we'll have to decide how that will look and what you guys want to do. But everything else has been moved out and moved to local or other funding. These are the positions that we've been budgeting the whole time, but to save that money and build our fund balance to try to cover for some of the things that the cliff that we're going to be getting to at the end of September, these are the positions. So we've got a coordinator of student services at Georgetown Middle, district truancy officer, director of MTSS and intervention. That one came out, and then we moved the position though, or covered the coach position that went into that. So that's where we got the 4 curriculum, reading, elementary, and curriculum coaches. So there's still 6 that will move back into other funding after this year. These are the positions that, as of right now, will end when ESSER closes, and those are the 4 coaches for college and career readiness, 6.5 RBHS counselors. I think we'll be trying to work with special services on Medicaid funding to cover those. School psychologists and speech pathologists are scheduled to go away. I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll have to evaluate the need for services and whether those folks or those positions are needed. The itinerant nurse, then of course the Montessori interventionist and middle school teacher will come off of our ESSER monies. The instructional assistant will need to be worked back through or not. That would end. And the district social worker, that was a successful program, so it was picked up by Title I, so that's been moved out of ESSER. So that's 16.5. These are the positions that we've been working with you all on to budget for, or that we would like to budget for. The 4 middle school teachers, we did get those in the last round of budget. The reading coach at Waccamaw Middle School, they don't technically qualify for that state funding, so if we want to pay that out of local, we may have to come up with a different job description, so we don't supplant with the Title I money. Custodians, I think those will work their way into our allocation, so we plan to keep those. So we've gone from 62.2 in 21-22 to 44.2 in 23-24. Any questions?
I have a question concerning our interventionists that will be done away with the ESSER funds. Do we know how many interventionists will be after this school year funded by local? Do we know what that is? I mean, are we going from 2 to 1, 3 to 1? I mean, what's going to be left as far as interventionists?
I think that's a decision that we'll have to work on and bring back to you. The elementary schools have strongly requested it. Middle and high, I think, have, they like the program, but it's harder to implement one interventionist when you have all those subject areas.
And if I may, Mr. Cox, too, to add to that, we used our ESSER money to add an interventionist at every school site. And we've seen incredible gains at our elementary schools. And so that was the elementary principal's top request last year, was to move that out of ESSER into local. Mm-hmm. And the board decided when we were going through the budget process at that time, since we had ESSER paying for it for one more year, mm-hmm. I think there was a consensus among board members that they were important to our continued success, that we would take advantage of the ESSER funds for one more year and then make that a top priority as we move forward for the elementary interventionists.
Okay.
And that would be 10. That would be the elementary and Waccamaw Intermediate.
Yeah. I just want to make a statement for the record. I just think it's so necessary we focus on these interventionists. It's just helped these elementary kids so much. We saw such an improvement, and I can say that from personal experience. So I think it's something we need to keep them high priority with local funding.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we are on to our state assessment results with Dr. Baranow.
Good evening, Vice Chairman Ford, Superintendent Price, board members, and persons of the audience. I come before you this afternoon, to speak to you about our spring 23 data. We have received our SC Ready for ELA, Math, Science, EOC, and our Career Readiness, which just recently on Monday was publicly released for EOC and Career Readiness. The first slide just gives you an overall view of our elementary and middle state assessments in ELA, Math, and Science. We had increases from 2022 in all elementary areas and 2 or 3 middle school areas, with SC Ready ELA having results higher than even pre-pandemic 2019. So that just kind of gives you a quick snapshot. The next few slides will provide you with an overview of the levels for each SC Ready content area over the 4-year time frame, so that you can see how we compare from 2019 to now. As the legend denotes, your red does not meet standard, yellow is approaching standard, and your green is meets or exceeds standard. The first one you see before you is SC Ready ELA. We've steadily decreased in our not met and approaching, and increased in our meets and exceeds, which is what we want to see. With our 2023 meets and exceeds scores increasing 4.8% over our pre-pandemic 2019 scores. This slide is our overall math. Our SC Ready math meets and exceeds increased over 22 and 21 scores. However, we fell slightly short of reaching pre-pandemic 2019 scores by 5%. So we're still making gains and improvements for math. We're just not quite where we were in 2019. In science, we have meets and exceeds increases over 22 and 21. However, we fell short against pre-pandemic 2019 by about 6.4%. Our next slides, it's been broken down even more so that you can see by schools for each of the SC Ready. This is your 4-year trend data for ELA for your elementaries as well as your intermediate, Waccamaw Intermediate's 4th and 5th grade. And all the way to my right, you'll see the district's overall averages. We had 70% in the district's overall above pre-pandemic 2019 scores, and 80% in the district's overall increased over the prior 2 years, with our district overall showing almost an 18% gain over 2021 and almost an 8% gain over 2019. Staying with ELA, this is your middle schools or your middle school grades. You have Waccamaw Intermediate 6th grade in with this group as well. 100% of middle school grades and the district's overall increased over 2022 and 2021, with 80% of middle schools increasing over all 3 years, including the pre-pandemic 2019. This slide is your elementary math. We had 50% of our elementary schools with scores higher than pre-pandemic 2019, and 90% as well as the district's overall average surpassed 22 and 21 average scores. This is your middle school math, with 50% of middle school grades and the district overall average showing increases over 22 and 21. However, we didn't quite get back to our pre-pandemic 2019 scores, but we have shown increases over for this 3rd year. For science, you'll notice I have SC Ready. It's changing from SC Pass to SC Ready, so those are kind of synonymous titles. For you, just information for science, we only test at 4th and 6th grade, so when you see elementary science breakdown, that's only your 4th grade classes. When you see the middle school breakdown, that's only your 6th grade classes. For our 4th grade science scores, we had almost 70% improvement over 22 and 21 score, as well as the district's overall average. So 6 out of our 9 schools with 4th grade. We had 22% showing an increase over all 3 prior years. So 22% had improvements even over pre-pandemic 2019.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
The numbers for Plantersville Elementary School, can you explain why there isn't?
Plantersville, you have to have 20 in a group for it to score for the state to mark it. But even when they may have had 4 or 5 students, and out of those 4 or 5 students, they didn't have any that scored met or exceeds.
Thank you.
Okay. Meets or exceeds. Again, middle school would be your 6th grade students who take the science assessment. And as you can see from the chart, our 6th grade science is an area of concern for us that we have already begun addressing and discussing as we've analyzed data at the district level as well as at the school level. The next few slides, we look at each grade level in one chart. So for each content of SC Ready, we'll look at 3rd through 8th grade. This first chart is ELA. So for each grade, you see how the grade has done over the 4 years. If you'll notice to the top corner, what I've also added is a longitudinal outlook. So if you take 3rd grade, that was 3rd grade in 2019. They scored 47.4%, and then in 21 they were 4th grade, in 22 they were 5th grade, and in 23 they were our 6th graders. So it lets you see it's not matched data student to student, but it gives you a different look on the data, whereas what you see in the charts are year to year and not necessarily the same students you're looking at. But the longitudinal would be that same set of students across the years. So you can see that the 5th graders, when they started in 2019 as 5th graders, and now they're 8th graders, they went from 31.6% meets and exceeds to 42.7 meets and exceeds. 4th grade started out at 46 in 4th grade. They dipped down as 5th graders, came back up as 6th, and at 7th grade they're still making a climb back towards where they started as 4th graders. The same for your students who were 3rd graders in 2019. So that kind of gives you a different outlook on what our students were pre-pandemic and now that they've gone through the grades where they are now. And looking at the overall chart, 83% of our SC Ready ELA grades have increased over prior years, including pre-pandemic 2019. 3rd grade increased over 22 and 21. However, they were less than 2% lower than 2019. All other grades have increased, steadily increased. For math, I did again the longitudinal outlook for you so that you could see where those students started in 2019 and where they are now in 2023.
I can share with you, when you look at these results, we can certainly see where instruction has been greatly impacted with COVID. I think our children did well with continuing to read. Unfortunately, math takes real instruction. And I see that, you can't see the great impact there was in ELA, but you can see the great impact in math.
Yes. And that's something that we've talked about and discussed as well. And even when you were talking about our interventionists, where our interventionist focus is definitely, you can see within our scores, and just finding that balance that we need to find. But traditionally, throughout, you always tend to see your trends wherever you focus. That's where you see your increase. So it's always about trying to find that balance so that you can have that increase in all areas. And just a note for math, 5th grade increased over all 3 years. So they have went from 32.9% in 2019 to 36.9% in 2023. This is your fourth grade and 6th grade science. As stated before, science, you can see on 6th grade science, it's an area of needed improvement and definitely an area of concern. 4th grade is increased over 21 and 22, but we're not quite back where we were pre-pandemic 19. The next few slides will be a breakdown of our subgroups. For our SE Ready, this first slide is your subgroups for ELA. And as I mentioned before, we look at all our different makeups, subgroups. However, for the state, you have to have 20 or more when they're looking at a subgroup. We had 87.5% of our subgroups increased over prior years, including pre-pandemic 2019. This is our math subgroup. We had 87.5% of subgroups increased over 22 and 21 scores. And for math, our special services subgroup increased over the prior 3 years, including pre-pandemic 2019. Our science subgroup data definitely aligns with our grade level and school SE Ready science data, with only 37.5% of our subgroups having increased over 22 and 21 scores. And no subgroup is where we were in pre-pandemic 2019. So definitely, when you look at our data, we can see where science is definitely an area of need for us. Moving on to our end of course or EOC scores. This is for our high school students, and Algebra 1 could also be for 8th grade. Typically, EOCs are taken between 8th through 11th grade. And again, this just gives you a snapshot of where we were from, where we are from spring 22, and then where we are from spring 2019. The following slides will break down our EOC data by scoring range from F's to A's, where a score of C or higher is used to calculate proficiency, and a score of D or higher is used to determine progress towards our strategic goal specific to EOC passing rates. Our 2023 algebra proficiency rate is higher than 2019 and 21. However, it falls 0.68% under our 22 proficiency rate. Whereas the 2023 passing rate is higher than 22 and 21, but falls short of 2019 by just 0.02%. Biology 1 results, again, align with what we saw with our SC Ready Science results and is a noted need of concern. Passing rate has been lower than the previous 3 years, but the proficiency rate is lower than 22 and 19. However, we were an increase over 21 of 1.22%. English 2, 2019 test year was a mixed year of English 1 and English 2 EOCs. Therefore, it's not included in our English 2 data review. 2023 English 2 EOC results show an increase of students scoring at an A. However, we fell short over 22 scores with a decrease of 2.52% for passing rate and 0.49% for proficiency rate. U.S. history has a notable increase in passing rates over 22 and 21. However, 23 is 2.8% lower than 2019. Yet our proficiency rate has increased over the previous 3 years with an increase of 2.89% over 2019's proficiency rate. Now we'll look at EOC by schools. This is your Algebra 1. With 5 of our 8 schools with Algebra 1 classes increased over 22 scores, and the district saw a 0.46% increase over 22 scores. We did have 25% of schools with Algebra 1 classes increase scores over all 3 years, including 2019. English 2. Half of our high schools saw increases in English 2 scores over the prior 2 years, and 75% increased over spring 22 scores. Again, as you can see, as we saw with SC Ready Science, EOC Biology is an area concerned with only one school having increased over 22 scores and no school at or above pre-pandemic scores. U.S. history, 50% of our schools and the districts overall increased over 22, with one school having increased over all 3 years, including 2019. This is your EOC subgroup. All subgroups except one increased in Algebra 1 over 22 and 21, with 30% of subgroups increasing over 3 years, and that 30% having an average of 4 to 6% increase over pre-pandemic 2019 scores. Here's your biology subgroups. 50% of subgroups increased over 22 and 21 scores. Special services subgroup increased over the previous 3 years with a 9.44% increase over pre-pandemic 2019 scores. Our English 2 subgroup data is an area concern with only 20% scoring higher than 22 and only 10% scoring higher than 2019. So this is a prime example of when you look at data at one spot, but then when you start breaking it down, what that actually looks like as you break it down. This is your U.S. history subgroups. We see some improvement over the 22 and 21 school years, but we're not quite where we need to be for pre-pandemic 2019. And just a note, gifted and talented was not broken down as a subgroup by the state until the 2021 school year. Prior to that, that's why you don't see the 2019 orange column for that group.
And that was a group that we targeted last year. I noted as we went through the presentation. So we made significant gains in most areas, if not all, in that subgroup as we looked at strategies to address that last year.
Yes, ma'am. That is a part of our strategic plan.
Right.
And we broke it down into which strands they needed to focus on and work
and
more
that certainly
towards.
was fruitful, so
yes, ma'am.
That was very good.
Okay. This next one is just an overall view. This is something that Dr. Giles shared in joint leadership with our principals. On my left, you see schools that meet or exceed pre-pandemic 2019 as an overall district, and then on my right are schools that have growth from spring 22 to spring 23. Most notable is our growth in ELA at all levels, as well as our growth over 22 in elementary math. These overall summaries further solidify what we saw in our trend data breakdowns. Our strides and efforts in ELA have provided growth across the board, and we are seeing evidence of narrowing the gap created by the COVID years. We have had growth as well in math, especially over 22, and with our continued efforts, we are headed in the right direction to further increase achievement. There is a need across the district at all levels to improve learning in science as dictated not only through SC Ready, but also our EOC biology scores. Any questions on SC Ready or EOC? Our next area is career readiness. This is an overall view of our 2023 career readiness assessment. 22-23 school year saw us having to have two different career assessments. In the fall, students took work keys, and in the spring we moved to Win Learning. Win Learning is now our career readiness assessment. In prior years, we've had work keys and ready to work. This year, our levels changed from bronze, gold, and silver to just looking at our levels. So if you look at your level 3, 4, and 5, those are what counts towards career readiness. Per the State Department's Education Accountability Guidelines, or when we're looking at our strategic goals, as well as high school's report card ratings. This chart shows you our trend data in career readiness. And again, I do have to mention again the difference in the assessments over the years. So we really don't have assessment data that is from the same assessment to compare to. So we really want to see how we do on our fall and spring 23-24 assessment, because that will give us a better indication when we're able to compare it to spring 23, because that'll be the same assessment.
Question?
Yes.
How come we have all these different assessments? They change from year to year. Who determines that?
The State Department, they go out on a request for proposal, ever so often, and there was a big legal issue with our career readiness last year. WorkKeys is by ACT, and there was a lawsuit filed by ACT, so we were able to do ACT WorkKeys in the fall, but then we couldn't do anything after December with WorkKeys. So then they did an emergency contract and with Win Learning, and we saw Win Learning with the spring. So what you see, the way career readiness works, if it's the same assessment, students can take it in the fall, and then if they miss, they don't credential in math, they can just take the math in the spring if it's the same. But what we saw last year is, because we took WorkKeys in the fall and Win Learning in the spring, all those kids had to sit and take the entire test again. So we really had a concern with student morale, especially when they're able to see their score and they know if they get a 2, they're automatically, let's say they take math first, they get into a math, they automatically know they're not going to credential for the other ones. Or if they get a 1, a 2, they might be borderline. So then we encourage them to complete the test and to stay engaged with it, but they know they had sat through previously and passed certain parts. So this year, for example, because we have Win Learning again, in the fall, any of our seniors who didn't credential, they only have to take that area they might not have credentialed in, if it was data or reading.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
On the entire presentation? I do. Because as I mentioned earlier, I'm still trying to get my head around all of these different numbers and so forth. My first one is, how are the levels for meet or exceed set?
There are cut scores set by the state, and there's a range from not met to exceeds.
Okay. How rigorous are those? How well do those track end-of-year results when they take a final test and say, this is, regardless of all these different things I've tested over the year, when the rubber meets the road at the end and I have to test on how much have I learned, how predictive are these tests to that end-of-year test on how well the person's going to do?
So EOC can be predictive based on standard instruction. SC Ready can, but I will tell you, SC Ready several years ago, when a study was done, South Carolina had one of the most rigorous state assessments in the U.S.
Okay.
And Mr. DuBose, if I may add to that, what Dr. Barano is saying, the SC Ready assessments and the EOCs, they are the end-of-the-year test. So you may remember we've given presentations in the past on iReady scores. That's formative data where we're saying, hey, by now you should have learned these skills or this information. And so it gives our teachers the ability to take a look at where we're falling short, to do some intentional instruction in those areas to prepare them for the SC Ready and the EOCs. So these are the end-of-year assessments.
They are?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
And how they're tracking on those.
Yep.
How come we don't break out meeting and exceeding? Why do we lump those together, meets and exceeds?
I can. The state does break it down, but it also does meets and exceeds, because that's your proficiency and beyond.
Okay.
But I can go back and break that down if you'd like.
I'm just curious. I'd like to see that. And what does approaching mean?
Approaching is typically you're one grade level behind. You are close to grade level standard mastery, but you're not quite there.
Okay. So how far how deep into not meeting or exceeding can you score and get near? Is that, I mean, is there, what percentage of the near meeting are actually in not yet meeting or exceeding?
So again, it's broken down in that cut score. They actually have it broke down in a chart that I can share with you. The State Department breaks that down.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. So I have a question just generally is, what are the obstacles that we're seeing to learning? Why aren't these kids doing better than they are?
I will tell you first, just from data-wise, attendance is still a great concern for us.
Attendance?
Where it is across the state and the nation. We still are not where we were prior to pandemic, COVID years, and attendance is a great concern. If students aren't in school, they're not learning.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment, just kind of going through these EOC numbers earlier. You know, when we look at scores from 60 to 69 and then 0 to 59, one being a D and an F, I mean, we're reaching on biology and algebra, we're looking at 48, 68% or more that's not cutting the mustard. And Algebra 1 and Biology 1. So we definitely got a ways to go.
Yes, sir.
We really do. Those are pretty bad numbers in my book.
And these numbers mirror what's going on across the state and the nation, don't they? In terms of the really low math scores and science scores.
Yes, I think it was one area was only 40% had mastered. I think that was U.S. history. Only 40% was at proficiency rate, so C and above. But yes, based on what was released on yesterday.
And I recall a few years ago when we were kind of looking at this and we were wondering what the impact of COVID would be. We knew we were in for an uphill struggle, especially in math, and we're seeing that we've got a large hole to dig out of. And I know that there have been a lot of efforts and strategies and kind of having to pivot and see where else, how creative we can be in continuing to move the needle up. So this is this gives us a good picture of where we are. We kind of knew we would be here with math, unfortunately. And it's great to see the gains that we have in the other areas. But obviously the math and science is a big concern.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the 8th grade scores, and especially the 7th and 8th grade math scores, you kind of can predict that you're going to have lower scores in science and math.
Right.
And that's of grave concern, especially when you've got a higher percentage in 3rd grade that are meeting on standard, and by the time they're 8th graders, it's not even half almost what it was in 3rd grade. So we definitely have a gap there, and we have concentrated on ELA because if you can't read in life, you can't do anything else. But now we're finding very quickly that with technology, if you can't do math, not only do you have to read, but you have to do math. And so we do have a gap there to really look at. And when we look at resources and interventions for the upcoming year, I'd surely like for us, just like we did hone in on GT last year, we're going to have to hone in on what are we willing to pay in resources to help that math gap. And when we look at those positions, I think we certainly have to look at that as a board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, we have district goals with our superintendent, Mr. Price.
Dinner for us in the back.
Good evening, Madam Vice Chair and ladies and gentlemen of the board. Tonight, I present to you a review of our goals from the 22-23 school year and our progress towards those goals, along with our goals for the new 23-24 year. We have 5 different categories of goals each year, and we try to align our efforts with these areas: student achievement, operations, finance, human resources, and communications. In reviewing these goals, you'll notice that each item is hyperlinked in the presentation to provide you with evidence supporting those goals. For the sake of time, I will not go into these documents deeply, but they are available for you to review at your leisure. First, we'll look at student achievement. Over the past 2 years, we have worked strategically with our principals and our curriculum coaches to help build instructional capacity. Through a collaborative effort, we have designed our own classroom observation instrument that allows us to focus on specific components of a lesson, either in the beginning, the middle, or the end. These classroom observation instruments equip principals and assistant principals with the ability to provide specific feedback on what they observe while visiting a classroom. By collecting and analyzing this data, it also allows school administrators to identify trends that may require specific professional development for an individual or school-wide. We've also invested a lot of our professional learning time with getting trained on how to conduct and follow through on coaching conversations with teachers. Please know this is not a teacher evaluation system. This process is specifically focused on growing instructional relationships through growth and support. We've also designed and launched our first Educators in Industry experience, where we had middle and high school teachers visit local industries to learn what they are looking for in their future workforce. Our teachers had the opportunity to visit Six Axis or SafeRack, International Paper, Tidelands Health, and Horry Georgetown Tech to learn valuable information that they could take back and share with their students and their colleagues. We look forward to our second experience later this fall. We have now completed our anti-bullying program training in all of our schools, and we will continue to review the fidelity of implementation and follow-through. We revised our alternative school program last year to have a more defined structure that also includes counseling support built into the student's day. This year, we are introducing a new academic delivery platform which should help students make a more seamless transition between their homeschool and Howard alternative. And as you are aware, we created a discipline committee to revisit our code of conduct and accountability measures that included interventions, restorative practices, and counseling opportunities. This was something that our teachers and our board were very interested in addressing last year, and the proposal was approved by you earlier this summer. Now, our focus will shift to consistent implementation and follow-through. We now move into some specific achievement targets from last year. The goals for this area come directly from our 5-year strategic plan. You'll see that some areas that have a larger goal gap than others, and this may be because we have eclipsed the goals set in our strategic plan, and we are continuing our journey for improvement. You'll also see that the results of our efforts have been color-coded. Green means we met our goal. Yellow means we improved but did not reach our goal, and red means we did not grow in that area, as Dr. Barano has just recently presented. And as I go through these areas, you will notice that we have a lot to celebrate, but we also have work to do. For our pre-K students, our goal was to increase the percentage scoring within the spring development ranges as measured by PALS from 79 to 83%, and we met that goal with 83%. For KRA, we wanted to increase the percentage of students demonstrating readiness, the kindergarten readiness assessment, from 47 to 50%, and we increased by 85%, which is more indicative of how our students were performing on KRA pre-pandemic. We wanted to increase the percentage of first and second graders scoring at or above grade level on iReady ELA from 49 and 52% respectively to 47 and 50. And we went from we went to 52% in first grade and 56% in second grade, so we met both of those goals. We also wanted to increase our students that were growing in iReady Math. And just like with SC Ready, we see that iReady Math was also a challenge for our first and second graders. Our goals were to go from both grades from 44 to 47%. First graders scored 43%, second graders scored 44%. And again, these are not the same students moving forward. These are a new group of first and second graders. But you may have noticed if you look back at the lines that were struck through, we made a significant jump the previous year. So our goals were a little bit higher and more lofty, but still we're showing growth over 2 years ago. As a quick review from third through 8th grade ELA on SC Ready, I'm not going to go back through these since Dr. Barano just went through them, but you see a trend with ELA with 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA students meeting those growth goals. And with math, we met them in 3rd and 4th and 7th. We increased in 5th grade, but we didn't meet our stretch goal. And then 8th grade was the same thing. We grew a point in percentage, but not to our 22% goal. With science, as been denoted earlier, we grew and met our goal. We hit right on our goal at 35.9% for 4th grade. But with 6th grade science, that's where we have concerns. Looking at EOCs, our goal for Algebra 1 was to go from 51 to 54. We increased, but we didn't hit our goal. In English 2, we wanted to go from 82 to 85. We hit 79, which is more than what our previous goal was at 64%, but not as high as we had done the year before. So we want to continue to challenge to eclipse that goal. Biology 1 is a concern, as has already been discussed. Our goal was to grow to 56% passing, and we hit 47%. U.S. history was a big jump to 59%, and that's something that we're really proud of. The next 3 bullets, the graduation rate, the college ready, and the career ready rates, those are all things that are going to be released later in October. Those results are still embargoed. They haven't been released for public presentation. I'll point out that our goal in the graduation rate to get to 88% is well above the state average, so we're continuing to try to stay above the state average with our graduation rate. When it comes to college and career ready, it's not just an assessment. Earlier tonight, Dr. Barano talked about the career readiness assessment results, but there are specific criteria, different scoring mechanisms that a student can meet to be considered college and or career ready. The career readiness assessment is just one of those performance measures. There are others as well.
Excuse me, Mr. Price.
Yes.
What is the state's graduation rate?
Oh, Dr. Barano, do you remember offhand? I want to say it's around 82, 83%. So we were, at last count, we were 5 to 6% above the state average.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Moving on to operations, you've had 2 recent presentations on the new safety equipment and technology that we added to our schools last year. This includes our open gate weapons detection system and our Halo smoke and sound sensor systems in our restrooms. We presented and received approval of a 5-year operations plan, which also included 2 additional athletic projects that were voted on and approved separately. We completed our training for reunification teams in the event of a crisis and are now beginning preparation for a drill to be done at some point in the future when students are not in school. We also introduced a new system focused on attendance, truancy, and accountability.
ESSER 2 will be wrapping up at the end of this week, and we will turn our attention to our final year with ESSER 3. Mrs. Johnson gave an update earlier tonight on where we are with those plans, and I remind the board of the commendation we received from the State Department of Education last year when they identified Georgetown County School District as being an exemplar district for our plan. We finished the school year in the positive with regards to our annual operating budget, which keeps us in good standing with all of our crediting agencies. We have continued to adjust our staffing to align with our enrollment, and we are back in alignment after seeing a decline in students during the COVID year. And after a year-long process of preparation and training, we successfully transitioned to our new financial management software in July. Now we will work to learn all of its capabilities as we look to continue our efforts to improve efficiency. Our Human Resources Department works tirelessly to recruit and retain quality employees throughout our district. Although the teacher candidate pool continues to become more and more shallow, we will continue our efforts to build a diverse work staff at all schools and locations. As you saw earlier tonight, we may not be perfect, but we are certainly ahead of our local competitors. Last year, we also launched our first Leadership Academy for non-certified staff to assist them with the challenges that come with leading others. We will continue this program in the 23-24 school year. We successfully completed our accreditation process last year, so we are approved for the next 5 years. Cognia's Index of Education Quality, the IEQ, has 3 different ranges of scores that set school districts into categories based on expectations and areas for improvement. Those categories are below 220, 220 to 300, and above 300. Cognia's IEQ network average is 253. Georgetown County School District scored a 318. We have received a comprehensive report from Cognia, and we will be sharing that with the board at an upcoming meeting. We have also worked diligently at the district and school level to highlight and promote events and opportunities. We will continue these efforts throughout the school year, and you may have also noticed that we completed an overhaul of our website in an effort to make them more serviceable and user-friendly, not only for the district as a whole, but also our school sites as well. That completes our recap of the goals we set for last school year. And as you can tell, we were incredibly busy with our efforts and accomplishments, but there is still work to be done. At this time, I'd like to present our goals to you for the 23-24 school year. We'll stick with the same 5 categories of student achievement, operations, finance, human resources, and communications. With student achievement, we're going to work on implementing coaching conversation protocols to assist with professional collaboration. We started that journey last year. We'll spend more time with that this year. We are launching our 5 magnet programs in our Carvers Bay area schools. We are also launching a new Academic Support Day program for our struggling students, and this will be offered to students who are not meeting satisfactory progress with their grades during the weeks that we are off throughout the school year. As you recall, this is an opportunity to invite them in, to work with them, so that hopefully we can help them catch up and keep up throughout the year, rather than trying to do it at the end of the year through summer school. We're going to increase our initiatives to help ensure our CTE completers and our CCR graduation percentage continue to rise. That's a target for us this year, and we're going to begin building common assessments for our academic classes. Looking at our numeric goals, our goals this year for increasing pre-K scores on PALS, we want to go from 83% to 85%. Our KRA results for students demonstrating readiness, we want to grow from 85 to 88. We want to increase the percentage of first and second graders scoring at or above grade level on iReady ELA from 52 to 55% in first grade and 56 to 59 in second. Similarly, with math, we want to increase first grade iReady scores from 43 to 53% and 44 to 50%. Now, you'll notice that there's a larger gap there, and that's because we want to catch up with some of our goals that we established in our strategic plan. Here are our goals for the upcoming year with SC Ready, 3rd through 8th. You'll see them listed there. We're going to, although we've already eclipsed some of our goals in our 5-year strategic plan, we're not going to kick our heels up and say we're good. We're going to continue to try to stretch. I'll point out that the largest gaps that we're going to be challenging ourselves with are on the right side of the page, and that's dealing with math. Specifically in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades with some of the gaps we're trying to meet and the ability to increase the overall achievement scores in those grades. 4th grade science will continue to push forward, and then 6th grade science, we've got a huge jump that we need to make up to get back on track. So as has been mentioned already before, math and science will be a top focus as we move throughout the year. With our EOCs, we want to continue to increase in those areas, get back on track with English 2 and biology. And U.S. history, we want to continue the trend that we experienced last year. Algebra 1, we also want to continue to grow, and we will provide target percentages for grad rate and CCR status once those results are made available to us. With operations, we are going to implement a new behavioral threat assessment management team at each of our schools. This is an expectation that the state puts before us, or has put before us, and so that's something that we will be working on to make sure we have a strategic process at every school. We're also going to be working to implement the new code of conduct that the board approved with consistency throughout all of our schools. We are also launching an explanation for workforce housing opportunities, and housing for employees is something that's been a discussion not only in Georgetown, not just for school district employees, but in different areas around the state. People being able to afford to live in the areas where they work. And so we are working closely with some folks in the county to try to see if there are options that may be available to us as a school district. So we're excited about some of these conversations and where they're going, and hopefully we'll see some of them take root. And then finally, with operations, we're going to implement our enhanced safety measures at athletic contests that were released a few weeks ago, continuing to ensure that those are done consistently. With finance, we're going to wrap up ESSER 3. This is our final year with ESSER 3. We want to make sure that we don't send any money back to the feds. We want to make sure we take advantage of every cent that is available to us. As always, we want to sustain all operations within the approved operating budget for the school year. And this is our last year to bring our staffing into balance, and that's something that we'll be working very strategically on in the coming months to make sure that those plans are all in place. We feel like they've all been communicated. We've got some final pieces that we have to nail down, but we're working in that direction. We're also going to implement a pilot of time and attendance program with our new business services software. This is to help with efficiency and consistency and move us more into technology use rather than paper tracking. And then finally, to work to develop a records and document management plan for schools so we can ensure consistency at every site throughout the district. With human resources, the top 2 bullets are always going to be there for us to recruit and retain highly qualified and high-quality personnel to work in our school district, and then continue to recruit and retain diverse faculty and staff that represent our student demographics. We're going to develop an orientation and training program for instructional assistants and one-to-one student shadows. And you heard Dr. Milton talking about this earlier this evening. This was something that we identified as a need, and we were already off to a great start with that to make sure that our teaching assistants and our shadows know exactly what's expected of them when they walk into a classroom or meet the student that they're going to be working with. And then as Mr. Jenkins presented briefly last spring and mentioned earlier tonight, to develop a Project Bold partnership to attract future college graduates back to GCSD to teach. And then finally, with communications, expanding the use of our new district website and social media accounts. Develop and implement GPS routing software for school buses. This is something that's now available to us that we are learning about and participating in professional development. And what it would give us the ability to do is to make this service available to parents so that they can pull up an app on their phone and see. It's kind of like an Uber. If you've ever requested or ordered an Uber, you can see where that Uber is in relation to you and how soon it gets to you. Well, this software will allow parents to be able to do that with their student's bus. They'll be able to pull up a specific bus number, see where it is, how close it is to dropping off or picking up. So it's new software that's been made available to us and something that we are learning and exploring right now. And we hope to have some pilots of that rolled out sometime soon. We're going to initiate school student spotlight showcases at board meetings. You saw the first of that tonight, showcasing the great talents of our students that sang at the Bring Harriet Home unveiling ceremony, and we want to make this a regular thing. We've got so many talented students, and we've got so many of our schools that are doing wonderful things. We want to make sure we showcase that for you as a board so that you can see firsthand some of the talents and wonderful things that we've got going on throughout the district. We're also going to initiate a partnership with Tidelands Health to create a scholars program that will attract students into the healthcare occupation pathway. An initial meeting has already taken place, and we want to try to identify high-need jobs in our healthcare system and set up opportunities that if students are interested in that and they are recognized early, that they will have opportunities to have guaranteed employment waiting for them and tuition relief if they go to a designated school with the intent to go into work for them upon graduation. So it's a very optimistic opportunity. Tidelands is very interested in forming this partnership with us, and so we hope to bring you some positive updates in the future about that. And then in addition to that, as Mr. Jenkins has mentioned, recruiting a teacher workforce is increasingly challenging. And so another partnership that we are pursuing is to create a future teacher program between Horry Georgetown Tech and Coastal, where students will have the opportunity to begin taking education courses in high school for free, and then go on to HGTC and get an automatic transfer if they're part of this program where they can finish their college degree in education in 3 years and then have part of that paid back to them if they complete it successfully. So with that 4th year, they could get out, graduate early, and go on to work, or they could begin working on a master's program their 4th year and come out of college with a master's degree in their pocket ready to go to work. So we're excited about some of these opportunities and hope to be able to bring you good news as we move forward and looking to bring these types of experiences to our students here in Georgetown. This concludes the presentation for our district goals, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Ambitious.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And we have come, well, to the bottom of the agenda. Now, board superintendent comments or requests. Any board members have any comments they'd like to share?
I'd just like to share that the Beach Singers program that Ms. Nairn is part of, and which has always flourished, and our numbers have been lower the last few years since COVID. And we can see what a wonderful presentation and a super job she does. And I'd certainly like to see parents, if you're in the community, the summer programs that we have that give students a jump start in those. I'd like for you to begin planning for next summer to have your children involved in the program of art and music and drama, because those are outstanding opportunities for our students in the summertime. And they lead to a year-long training in music that also leads to scholarships and money that we've had many students go on to participate in. And thank you to that group for tonight because they did an outstanding job.
They did.
Yes, they did.
I just wanted to thank Ms. Kibler and her team and Mr. Price for the outstanding program for our fourth graders on Friday. I did not go to the park, but Ms. Days and her performance was fabulous, and for the most part, those kids were just enamored of it. I mean, they enjoyed it, they loved it. I loved it. I went both sessions because I enjoyed it so much. And the kids were well behaved, and they just. And we learned some things too about Harriet Tubman that we didn't know. So thank you for that, and thank you for bringing that for our kids and to our community. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had our first meeting of our security safety. I think it went real well. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about a lot of challenges that we're going to have to implement, but I think our first meeting went really well. Between now and October, hopefully we'll be able to visit some other schools to see what they're doing, and we're on our way to looking at some things.
And I would just like to echo Ms. Anderson's comments about the Bring Harriet Home presentation Friday. It was outstanding. I also wanted to thank the staff here, Human Resources. I really appreciate the presentation that Dr. Milton made, as well as Doug for Mr. Jenkins. It was very comprehensive, and I really appreciate the time and effort put into it. It gave us a really good picture. Also, the state assessment results, you know, it was lengthy, but these were very important results that needed to be shared, and I appreciate it was in depth, but it was also a snapshot, so I appreciate the work that staff has put into putting these presentations together. So I thank you for that. Mr. Price.
I'll keep my remarks brief, just to echo everything that's been said up to this point. Just a special thank you to Ms. Kibler for all of her coordinating efforts for the Bring Harriet Home experience. There was a lot of work done behind the scenes, and Ms. Kibler, as you may have picked up in her comments, has been working on this for well over a year. And I especially want to thank Ms. Marilyn Hemingway and the Gullah Geechee Chamber for inviting us to be a part of this so that our students could enjoy the outcome of it. So I really appreciated that. And just a reminder that our first half day of the year is tomorrow. Elementary will be dismissed at 11 o'clock, intermediate at 11:15, and middle and high at 12:15 so that teachers can participate in professional collaboration and learning. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay. We now have an executive session where we will discuss student expulsion appeals. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are in executive session.
Yes. Just take pictures of the chair.
Yes, can I have a motion on S1?
Yes. Vice Chairperson, I move that the board modify the decision of the hearing officer to expel, S1, and further move that the administration be directed to place student S1 on home-based services for the rest of the year, effective immediately.
Is there a second?
Second.
May I have a hand vote? All in favor, raise their hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion for S2?
I do. I move that the board modify the decision of the hearing officer to expel student S2, and further move that administration be directed to place student S2 on home-based services for the remainder of this semester, then sent to Howard Alternative School for the second semester.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify aye by raising your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion for S3?
Yes. I move that the board suspend the decision to expel student S3 for the remainder of the year and make a motion that we send him to Howard for the second semester and homebound for the remainder of this year, the first semester.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. And do I hear a motion for S4?
I'll make a motion that we move that the board modify the decision of the hearing officer to expel student S4 and further move that administration to be directed to place S4 for the remainder of this semester at home-based and for the second semester at Howard Alternative School.
All in favor, signify aye by raising your hand.
Second.
I'm sorry. Second. Now we have the vote. All in favor, raise your hand. And any opposes? Motion carries.
Could we go back and get the motion for S1 again? I didn't quite get all of that. I mean, just to clarify.
I move that the board modify the decision of the hearing officer to expel S1 and further move that the administration be directed to place student S1 on home-based services for the rest of the year, effective immediately.
Okay.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.